Hello, I'm S.G. Grant. Once we have a content angle, we can continue the blueprinting process by crafting a compelling question. As the slide shows, the idea of a compelling question comes directly from the KAS standards that describe the inquiry practice of questioning. With this slide, we can see that a compelling question has three characteristics. First, a compelling question sets the stage for the rest of an inquiry. In that sense, we talk about compelling questions serving as a key element of framing an inquiry. The second characteristic of a compelling question actually has two parts. First, a compelling question has to represent the intellectual rigor or the academic challenge of the inquiry. And second, a compelling question has to speak to how an inquiry is relevant to your students' lives. We'll look closer at those two elements in the next couple of slides. For now, note that the third characteristic of a compelling question is the idea that it enables students to construct a range of viable arguments in response to the question. One of the qualities of a good compelling question is that it's academically rigorous. The school year flies by too quickly to engage in trivial matters, so a compelling question has to have some intellectual meat. There are two ways that we assess the academic quality of a compelling question. One is to ask ourselves if the question reflects an enduring issue, concern, or debate. Fortunately, most topics in a set of curriculum standards fit that bill. But with limited time, teachers will want to ask themselves, is the content behind my compelling question robust enough to sustain an inquiry? The second way that we assess the quality of a compelling question is by asking if it draws on multiple disciplinary lenses. An inquiry may feature a single discipline, but more often than not, good inquiries ask students to consider a range of disciplinary perspectives. The second quality of a compelling question is its relevance to students' lives. Teachers always hope their lessons will connect to their students' experiences, but far too often it's more hope than reality. So to assess whether a compelling question is relevant to students, we first ask if it reflects a quality or condition that we know students care about. The second way to assess relevance is to determine if a compelling question honors and respects students' intellectual efforts. When we work with teachers, we rarely find any who struggle with the academic quality of their compelling questions. Instead, it's the student relevance piece that typically proves most troubling. So let's take a couple of minutes to think about what students care about. Although it sometimes seems like students care only about their friends and their phones, in fact, we know that students care about a whole range of things that we can draw on to build compelling questions. Any list of things that kids care about is likely to start with fairness. We've yet to run across a single teacher who hasn't heard "that's not fair" far more times than they care to remember. Of course, what students mean by fairness isn't always clear, but the idea that they care about what seems fair and unfair, right and wrong, offers their teachers a useful angle when constructing a compelling question. After all, history offers far too many examples of the fair and unfair treatment of human beings. So if we can connect our academic content to the issue of fairness through a compelling question, we have a good chance of engaging our students in deep inquiry. Likewise, the other items on this slide suggest things that students know and care about. Our job, then, is to connect these ideas to the history, geography, economics, and civics topics we want to teach. So let's see how well you can assess the compellingness of some compelling questions. For each of the examples on this slide, ask yourself, what's the academic content being represented? And how likely is this question to connect to something I think my students would care about? Now that you're an expert in diagnosing the compelling or not so compelling nature of compelling questions, let's spend a little time thinking about the types of compelling questions you might use with kids. In this slide and the next, we offer 10 different ways of expressing a compelling question. We offer this list not because we think it's definitive, but as a way to jumpstart your thinking as you develop your own questions. In other words, if you've got a decent but not great compelling question that represents one of these types, try recasting it as another type to see if it holds up. Here, we want to pause a minute to address what we think of as a common misperception about questions and inquiry. That misperception is that a yes-no question can't be compelling because it implies a single right answer, yes or no. We might think the same thing if that response, yes or no, was sufficient, but it's not. Expressing a yes or no opinion about a topic is okay in some social settings, but in social studies classes, we want students to form arguments, and an argument demands evidence to support one's yes or no answer. Even more important is the fact that a yes or no question can actually yield more than those two responses. Equally valid arguments can be made around a yes but or a no but response. Taking a compelling question approach to developing an inquiry offers all kinds of interesting potential. In this slide, we show how a single topic, one that students are typically interested in, the First Amendment, and play it out in different ways depending on the type of compelling question that's asked. Okay, back to work. In the Practice It section are a series of 5 questions designed to help you get started in constructing a compelling question around the content angle you identified earlier. The first question asks you to draft a possible compelling question for your inquiry. Of course, there's no one right question for a topic, so feel free to be playful. Once you have at least one possible compelling question drafted, however, then ask yourself whether it hits the mark both in terms of intellectual rigor and in terms of relevance to your students' lives. To further refine your compelling question, try to categorize it using one of the types we listed on the earlier slides. Finally, consider other possibilities for your compelling question by expressing it through a different type of compelling question. In the next element, Dr. Kathy Swan will help you make sure your compelling question will function in the inquiry by zooming in on arguments, one of the summative tasks in an inquiry.